You're good.
Okay. All right. So the first thing you want to do when you come inside the truck is you just want to make sure that your seatbelt is on, right? Inspect it in front of your examiner. Just say that it's not cut, it's not broken, it's not frayed, and that it buckles and that it unbuckles. And then now you have your seatbelt on. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pay close attention to air gauge number 1 and air gauge number 2. So what we're going to do is perform a safe start. So we're just going to turn the key into the on position. And we're going to wait for the gauges to come on the dash. The ABS light is on and on the instrument panel. If everything checks out, everything should shut off. So at this point, we know that we need 120 pounds of pressure in the system on both air gauges, and we're quite not there yet. So at this moment, we know that we have to start the truck up so that we could build up the air pressure. So we're turning all the way on. We're going to start the truck up. All right. Now, to help the truck build up the air pressure all on its own, we're going to give it some fuel. And we're going to watch the RPMs, and we're going to keep it between 10 and 15. And we're going to make sure that we don't go above 15. All right. And we're going to listen for the air governor. All right. It's going to make like a sneeze sound, like a ch. All right. Because that's going to tell us that we have maximum air in the system. So right now we're just building up the air. So if you see that you have low air and it's not quite at the 120, you're just going to turn the truck on and build it up until you hear that air governor. So we're building up the system right now. And you want to make sure that you build it up until you hear that governor, because that's going to tell us that we have maximum air in the system. All right, if we don't, there's a possibility that we could fail this part of the exam. And you have to make sure that both gauges are above 120. Okay, so that was the air governor. So you're going to announce that the air governor is working properly. So since this is an air leak test, we must turn the truck off because we're at 120. All right. That is a common mistake, not turning the truck off, because we're looking for an air leak and the truck must be off. But we do have to remember to put the key back into the on position. All right. Because later on, we're going to need to hear a buzzer and a light, and it won't come on if this key is not put back in the on position. So it does do a safe start. So now we're ready. So both gauges are now at 120 or above. Our key is in the on position. And now we're going to put static pressure on our service brake. So we're going to put some pressure, not a lot of pressure, but some pressure on the service brake. And while doing that, we're going to release the parking brake of the tractor and the parking brake of the trailer. And once we do that, you have to notice that the gauges will drop. All right, both air tanks will drop, and you're going to wait for them to both stabilize, meaning that they both are going to stop moving. All right, so that's what we're waiting for now, for them to both stop moving. And once they stop moving, we're going to start a 1-minute timer. So right now, both gauges have stopped moving, they have stabilized, and now we're going to wait 1 full minute, making sure that we don't lose more than 4 pounds of pressure in 1 minute. So we would start the counter. So we would go 1, and we're going to speed this up, but we're going to go the whole full 1 minute, but we're going to speed this up. We're going to go 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And what we're going to announce to the examiner is, after 1 minute, I did not lose more than 4 pounds of pressure. There are no leaks. All right, that's step number 1. Number 2 is that we need to listen for the low air warning light and buzzer to come on. That's the next step, to make sure that that warning device is going to work. So we pump the brakes. We go up and down on the brakes. All right, and then we're announced that we hear the buzzer and we see the light that's on the dash, letting us know that we have low air. All right, and that comes on at around 60 PSI. So we're gonna let them know that our low air warning devices, such as our buzzer and light, are working, and they came on at around 60 PSI. All right, Next, we're gonna make sure that the emergency spring brakes work properly of the tractor and the trailer. So we're gonna continue to pump the brakes, and in between 45 and 20, the emergency spring brakes should automatically pop out all on their own. So we're gonna pump the brakes. Good, so they both pop out, and that means that the emergency spring brakes are working on the tractor and the trailer, and that's gonna conclude the air leak test. All right, that's the air leak test, also known as the static brake test. All right, that's gonna conclude that. Okay. So now that we have concluded this air leak test, all right, the examiner needs to see that the truck can build up the air pressure all on its own. All right, so you're gonna allow the truck to build it up on its own. However, your examiner may tell you, hey, give it some fuel so that the buzzer stops. All right, so if they tell you that, then you'll give it fuel. So we're gonna give it fuel so that we can get the buzzer to stop. And we're gonna build it up, and we're gonna keep the RPMs between the 10 and the 15. All right, we don't wanna go over 15. All right, and we're gonna do this until the buzzer stops, and then we're gonna go into the in-cab inspection. This is where we check everything else inside the truck. Okay, so now that we're gonna do this in-cab inspection, there is no right and there's no wrong way of starting this, but we have to hit all the things that need to be inspected in the truck. So you need to have a structured way of knowing when you start and when you're done, so that you're not looking around making sure that you're not missing anything. So you want to do this inspection the same way every time you do it. So you're going to start from the outside, and then you're going to work your way inside. And you're going to talk about your hood mirrors. They're all secure. They're not cracked, they're not broken, they're not damaged. The nose mirror is all secure. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. The windshield is securely mounted. It's not cracked, it's not broken or damaged, it's also not leaking. There are no illegal stickers on the windshield. The inspection and registration stickers are all up to date. There is nothing on the dashboard that's obstructing the view. My right windows and my left windows are all secure. They're not cracked, they're not broken, they're not damaged. My right mirrors and my left mirrors are all secure, they're not broken or damaged, and they are adjusted to my view. My back window is all secure. It's not cracked, it's not broken or damaged, and it's not leaking. My interior light is working properly. Right now it's not, so I'm gonna report this to maintenance. So anything that's not working or damaged, you're just gonna let them know that you're gonna report this to maintenance. Up here is where I keep my spare fuses. Up here is where I keep my documents, such as my registration and my insurance paperwork. So now I'm gonna start from the left side of the vehicle, and I'm gonna work my way to the right. So I'm grab the steering wheel, I'm gonna let them know it has no more than 2 inches of play or no more than 10 degrees of play. My horn works, my city, and my highway horn works properly. My left turn signal is working properly. My right turn signal is working properly. My high beams are working properly. My windshield wipers are working, as well as the windshield washer fluid is all working properly. And my 4-way flashes are also working properly. Now I'm going to go to my gauges, and I'm going to call out my gauges. I'm going to start from the left, and I'm going to work my way to the right. So my transmission gauge is working. It's at 100 right now, and it's rising to a safe operating range. My water gauge is working properly. It's reading at 140, and it's rising to a safe operating range. My oil gauge is working properly, and it's reading about 50 PSI. My RPM gauge is working properly, and it's reading about 800 RPMs. My miles per hour gauge is working. It's at 0, and I'm gonna check it once I move the truck. My volt gauge is working, and it's reading between 14 and 15 volts. My fuel gauge is working, and I have enough for the trip. And both of my air gauges are working, reading above 120 PSI. Now I'm gonna make my way to my climate control. If it's off, you're gonna turn it on. You're gonna let them know that the heat is working, the cool is working, and also you're gonna turn the knob to defrost. and you're gonna reach up top and let them know that the defrost is working properly. The air valves to my parking brakes are all secure. They're not broken, they're not damaged, and not leaking. My gear selector is secure. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. There's nothing on the floor, and there's nothing underneath my pedals. I do have a fully charged, up-to-date fire extinguisher that's located underneath my driver's seat, and I have 3 emergency reflector triangles that are located underneath the passenger seat. My seat belt. My seat belt is not worn, it's not torn, it's not broken or damaged. It buckles, it unbuckles, and now you leave your seatbelt on. This is how you get your seatbelt on. Because now what we're gonna do is, once we finish with this in-cab, we're gonna end it with a 4-point brake test. We're gonna check the tractor parking brake, the trailer parking brake, and if we had a trolley brake that was equipped, we would check the trolley brake and the service brake. But since this tractor doesn't have a trolley brake, we won't be checking the trolley. You're only gonna inspect what you have. So right now, in order to do this, we're gonna put our foot on the service brake, and we're gonna release the tractor parking brake. So we left the trailer out. So this is the one that we're gonna be checking. So we're gonna move the gear selector from neutral to drive. We're gonna put 2 hands on the wheel. You're gonna take your foot off of your service brake and apply some fuel. And we're not moving, so that means that the trailer parking brake is working properly. We're gonna go back to neutral. You're gonna set your parking brakes to the tractor, and you're gonna release the trailer parking brakes. And we're gonna go to drive on your selector. And since the tractor is the one that's left out, this is the one that we're checking. 2 hands on the wheel. You're gonna take your foot off the service brake, give it some fuel. We're not moving. That means that the tractor parking brake is working properly. Now, since we don't have a trolley, we won't be checking that. So we're gonna go back to neutral. We're gonna set the trailer parking brakes and the tractor parking brakes. And what we're gonna do is, we're gonna charge the tanks back up. We're gonna build the air pressure back up to 120 so that we can check the service brake. So we give it fuel. You just keep the RPMs between 10 and 15, and you charge it back up until you hear the air governor. All right, because you can't move the truck without adequate air. All right, so if you move the truck and it's not adequate air, it's a possibility that you may fail this test. So we listen for the air governor. All right, there's the air governor, it's working properly. So now we apply pressure to our service brake. We're gonna go to drive. We're gonna release the tractor and the trailer parking brakes. Got 2 hands on the wheel. We're gonna check our left mirror and our right mirrors, and we'll pull forward. And as we pull forward, we're gonna give it some pressure to our service brake, and we're gonna let the examiner know that our service brake is working properly. The miles per hour gauge is also working, and that the truck didn't lean to the left or to the right. And then now we're gonna reapply our brakes, and we're gonna go to neutral, and that's gonna conclude the in-cab inspection.